Hello, welcome faculty members of ICI. Myself, Farhat Jumani, taking the privilege here to introduce this advanced database to you. Here I'm here not to teach you how to teach, but basically when we are looking at CA final students, from their point of view, we have to adopt a methodology which is going to help us and our students to go on a specific streamlining of the course so that they get the best out of our teachings. So today I would like to share some kind of a database I have built up so that besides what we have on our CD as the lab sessions, the students can have some extra practice as well. Now firstly, I will just show you the Access screen that I would like to share with you. Now here is the Access that we are looking at. I would tell you that initially when the student starts off, though we know they are into advanced database, and as per the book it says that they are directly going into advanced SQL queries. But here first, as we build up the tables, we will be looking at different creation of tables through both the design and datasheet view. Next, what I have got to tell you is when we look at building up the tables, it should be that the students are shown different data types so that even the ones which are not being used in the day-to-day, like OLE object, hyperlink, attachment, but the student should be directed to know about those. Secondly, when we are conducting this particular training, we should keep in mind that we adopt some kind of a case study so that once the student builds up a case study, they are very much clear about the idea and the confidence at the end of the session week in advanced database. Now if you look at some of the tables that I have tried to put over here, just for our reference, and this I can even share it with you for using it in the lab session. Now here what I have tried to use is the concept of how the ATM works. Now when we have different account tables, we can have account wherein the customer details would be there. Then looking at what the balance should be in that particular account, which would be the minimum balance. So I have taken into consideration the account balance table. Next, when I talk about the ATM, I mean to say that there is definitely going to be some transaction. Now depending on what the transaction would be, we would be generating the cash receipt. And if the customer requires the particular statement, then I have kept the statement table. Now if you see, I have tried to develop a concept wherein we can show them different relationships. And it is very important that they have a proper view of each relationship. That means they should be told where it is one-to-one with a proper primary connecting to a primary key. Next, if you observe, is I have taken a relationship here, which is again one-to-one, but from a primary key to simply a foreign key. And our most useful, the one which is one-to-many. Now in case of one-to-many, it is also necessary that we not only show them one-to-many relationship, but also enforce referential integrity, which speaks about that when there is something in the primary key, only then it can exist in the foreign key. If, for example, I have 5 products to be sold, and in the sale table, by mistake, the user is using a sixth product code. So it should happen that it should not allow us to do so. Now this would happen only when my enforced referential integrity is enforced. Now this is the relationship between the different tables. Now we come to where we will be sharing the PowerPoint presentation with you so that you are able to look at what is the topics that we will be covering. Now when we have talked about creation of tables, definitely please ensure that you create the tables and only then you show them that you have established the relationship while the tables are closed. Then the next step is once the relationship is established, then the student has to put the data into the tables. Because by then, whatever requirements of the primary and foreign key are there would have been established and the data would be properly accepted. Next thing is, even when we say that there are certain things which should not be done, like when in a primary key should not be null. Please show to the student that what happens when the primary key is null, because they should be able to track their own errors themselves. Likewise, even when we change the size of the text field, it is necessary that if my text field I am enforcing it to be just up to 4 characters, then please tell the student to also put the 5th character into the data and check whether it accepts or not. So such things where we ourselves know that things would not be accepted, it's a good practice that the student learns to solve their difficulties themselves. Now coming to ultimately when the data has been put into the tables, I know that most of you have already lot of experience into database, and that is the way that we are now looking at directly advanced database over here. But of course the primary queries that we have to solve with them are the ones which we have to do, because keeping in mind that these CA faculty, these CA students, they have been using Excel somewhere or the other in their articleship time. But Access is one where they do not have a lot of exposure. So even if we assume they have done this in ITT, they are not yet remembering anything. So the thing is, we look at them for the primary queries. And now I'm discussing with you what actually we have in our advanced database curriculum. So looking at the first thing that we have is database application using MS Access, where we will be looking at advanced SQL queries, definitely designing of forms and reports, building up the criteria expressions, macros, as well as switchboards, which is a very important feature, then data pages and protection, as well as import and exporting data from various applications. Now, as you are aware, there is already a CD that has been provided to us by ICI, which is having some lab exercises. So besides the example or case study that you consider in the lab, please also direct the students that they can try out the same on the database that is provided with the module. Then looking at what all we need to cover in the advanced SQL queries. Points to cover would be subquery, unmatched records query, duplicate query, grouping and summarizing the records, criteria with aggregate query, cross-tab query using wizard, pivot table and pivot chart, joins and its types used in the queries, calculated fields in a query result set. Now, what are the guidelines for subqueries? Now, we are looking at whatever we have seen, the points to be covered in advanced SQL queries. I'll just give you a brief description here, because as you know, the time limit is less today for this session. So we would be having a proactive session later on where you need to post your queries. You can write them and I can help you out in the further times. Okay, now when I look at guideline for a subquery, the subquery must always be written as an SQL statement, because when we write a query through a design, we are designing a simple query, but where we need to put a sub option, we need to go into the SQL statement. Now, as per our module says, we are supposed to do all the queries through the design view, most of them. But the subquery you will have to use an SQL statement. So here the subquery is always written in brackets. If you are using the same table for the main query and the subquery, we need to provide aliases, that is the alternative names to the tables. This so happens is because the main query, now if a subquery is returning more than one row, the in, any, all or exist clause should be used in the where statement. Now this is that definitely when we are going to have more number of rows that will be satisfying, then any of these clauses would have to be incorporated in your subquery. The next thing that we are going to cover into our curriculum is the unmatched records query. Now, unmatched record, the name itself is very, very simple. Just assume the simple thing in your mind that if there are some products and those are being sold, unmatched query would be like if I say that there is some product which has not been sold. So that is what I'm trying to track through this unmatched records query. Now, as we know that if we go to the report through the query wizard, we have an option which says unmatched query. So unmatched query records query examines the data found in two different tables or queries and compares the records based on a common field. Now if you see, I have taken into consideration two different tables or queries. So that is the reason that we also have to keep the students aware that the queries are not only to be built on tables, but they can also be built on the queries themselves. Now this type of query can help find records that have no corresponding records in other tables or queries. Like for example, I have already told you, we can retrieve products that have not been sold in any order, or maybe for customers who have not placed any orders. Likewise, if I consider the example that I discussed with you of an ATM system, then we can look at the account of people who have not executed the transaction through the ATM. So that also would be an example of an unmatched records query. Coming to the next topic, that is the duplicate queries. Duplicates, the name itself says that there are some records in the table which are based on some particular code, they are duplicates. That means, for example, suppose I have various customers procuring goods from us from time to time. So in this case, that customer ID would be repeated in the sale table. Your duplicate queries option creates a query that reports which records in a table are duplicated by matching one or more fields in the table. So again, this duplicate query is the simplest through your wizard. This type of query is useful when we have no unique indexes or primary key in the table. Yes, we have to keep in mind that when we look at the records of duplicate key, then it is definitely that it's not a primary key table, because in the primary key table you would not have duplicate values for that particular column. Otherwise, this data is imported from a source where we do not have mechanism to check duplicate values. That means wherein we have the duplicate values could be checked through the duplicate queries. Coming to grouping and summarizing records using criteria. Yes, our group by query, or as we all say, summation query. This allows us to provide queries that can be used for obtaining the aggregated results instead of individual records. So here we are going to see the records not as they appear in our tables, but based on any particular field. We are grouping those records, and that is how we are coming to the conclusion of summarizing either by any of the aggregate functions. Now these queries may be helpful in retrieving count of records, could be on a particular group, I can find out how many records are there, or if it's some calculative field where there are values, then I can sum them up. They could be average and min or max as the options give. Here these queries are also known as group by queries or totals query. Such queries can return the aggregated results from the entire table or the records of the table filtered by a certain criteria. Yes, look at the heading I have given, which says that we can group them, we can summarize them, either only on the grouping based, or while grouping itself, we can also put a criteria in the criteria window down so that it can shortlist as per our condition. Yes, when we talked about aggregate functions, I'll just quickly brush you through the ones that are available. Sum function, which is returning the sum of numeric data for a column or set of values in a column, so that is summation. Then as I said, if I need to count how many are there which are satisfying particular criteria, I can use the count function, which sets the values that satisfy the given criteria, since we are giving the criteria in the query. Next we have the average, that is AVG, which returns average of numeric data for a column or a set of columns which are based on the grouping. Max, as the name suggests, gives a maximum value from a set of values. Min returns a minimum value from a set of values. Variance returns the variance of values in a column or set of columns. Then we have standard deviation, returns a standard deviation for a set of data values. First will return the first value from a list of text values. And last would return the last value from a list of text values. Now you may wonder that we have to show them the group by query and so many aggregate functions. See, my personal suggestion is what you should do is show them two, like you can do one with sum, the other one with count. And then give them a few seconds or minutes so that they can go through one or two on their own. So then ultimately whenever they need whatever, they are able to do it. Then the next thing is a very interesting thing, cross-tab query. Cross-tab query can be done directly through the design, and then we can change the type to cross-tab. But the easier way to show them the cross-tab is through the wizard. Now cross-tab query is a special type of query that can be created to describe one numerical quantity in terms of two other fields. That is, this is technical. So we know there can be a row heading, there can be a column heading, and we can have some intersection of this row and column that would calculate against some aggregate function. So each cross-tab query will include one or more row headings, a single column heading, and a value to be displayed at the intersection of the row and column. Now that is why if we show them through the wizard, it is easy for them to see the preview in the wizard window. After creating the query through the wizard, you can show them that we can add criteria in the design view. Now what happens is when we establish the cross-tab through a wizard, we can run the query, and after which we come to the design view, show them that now if you need, how you can put the criteria. The result of the query appears as a three-dimensional table. That is, for example, if I say that months we can have on the rows, if there is some customer number in the table, then we can have it on the columns. And depending on if I want to count that for that particular month, that is that particular row, the customer number, what are the number of orders he or she has placed. Then I can use the count inside the intersection, which can give me the value of the count. Cross-tab queries are capable of handling much more complex calculations. So these are very powerful queries, and of course they can also be based on another query using multiple tables, or may use different level of grouping by having more than one row heading. Also, cross-tab queries can be created by query design just merely by changing the type of the cross-tab. The next thing is the pivot table. Now, a pivot table is a view in Access queries that allows summarizing and examining data in a datasheet form. The best way is execute a cross-tab query, let them see the results, and use that to develop the pivot table. The explanation becomes much more simpler. It is used to group the values as rows and columns with a calculated value at the intersection of each row and column. That is what is a pivot table. This is actually more easy to understand the cross-tab query result set. So a pivot table is created by dragging fields to the appropriate drop area on the design screen. Data can also be broken down to different levels of detail. Now what happens is, when we look at the pivot table, we know we have 4 drop areas that we need to tell them. First is the topmost filter area, which is used for the fields that are used as a filter for the entire table. Next we have the column area, in which the fields selected to be displayed as column headings are included in this particular area. Here when you click on the column area and you are picking up any particular, like if I say months, then when I click there I have further options I can choose from. We have row area. The fields selected to be displayed as row headings are dropped in this area. Suppose we have a filter as certain products, and within them we have some flavors. So that is what we can have in our row. Then the totals or detail area is where you will be putting the summation, that is the fields on which you have calculated any aggregate values. So the totals or details area is the field values to be used for calculations or summarization are dragged and dropped in this area, and the value is displayed at the intersection of a row and a column. Once we have developed the pivot table, the same thing can be taken into a pivot chart. We can use the same example and ask them to convert it into a pivot chart, because this is a tool used for graphic analysis of data. It is a very powerful tool today for financial analysis, because looking at it, firms and organizations can take their decisions further for decision making. It can display summarized data in different chart formats and enables data analysis. Yes, the best part about the pivot chart is it allows us to change its type also. Data can be presented by using from different chart types as required, and unwanted items can be hidden from being viewed. So if there are any fields which need not be used, can be dropped. Here, looking at the pivot chart, we have the x-axis, that is the horizontal axis in the pivot chart, the y-axis, which is the vertical axis, legend area. There is an option which we would see on the ribbon. When we click on the legend, we can have the table having the color code, which would be seen on our right. Filter field, a field on basis of which filter can be applied on the pivot chart. Data field is where field values to be shown along the y-axis. Category field, which is the field value to be shown on the x-axis. Series field values that will form the legend of the graph. So that means whatever we see as the colored part is actually our series. Yes, a very interesting thing in joins and its types. We know that we will be creating the tables and developing the relationships, after which we are putting data. When we open multiple tables in the query design, students look at it and they immediately say this is the relationship. But we are here to tell them and guide them that this is a join based on the relationships that we have created. Join is a temporary relationship that is created between two tables in a query based on the relationship, using a common field in both the tables, having same data type and usually the same. That means when you look at the join in the query design, you right click there and show them that these are join properties and not the edit relationship option. Joins created in a query are temporary and are meant for the current query only. Joining tables in a query is required to view the data from two or more tables. When two or more tables are added to the query design window, Access 2010 creates joins between them based on the relationship that we have defined in the relationship window. That means joins establish the criteria that the data must match to be included in the query operations. But when we say this must match, we need to throw light on the three types of joins. Different types of joins available with a different set of records, as the query results are the inner join, left outer join, and right outer join. So once you use the query design and you have taken multiple tables, kindly click on the right and show them the join properties, open up and show them the three joins that are available. The first tab, which is always by default, is the inner join, which matches records from both the tables on the left and the right and gives matching records. The next, where we say is the left outer join, is the table which is placed on the left. When I shift my radio button from the first to the second, that is what I show the students. At that time, when I throw on the light to see the query result set, they would see that the left table has given all the data and only matching records from the right table. And how are they confirmed that we say it's a left outer join? Please take them to the SQL view and let them read for themselves that there it is mentioned that once we have changed the option in the join properties, this is what is the left outer join. Similarly, you can click on the third option that tells us that it's a right outer join. So when we have the right outer join, it is the right table which will give the entire information and only matching records from the left table. Again, this can be seen in the SQL view. Calculated field in query results. Now, as you know, one thing is we do show them the calculated field which can be put as a table part, which is only from 2010. In 2007, we did not have this option of a calculated field in the table. But now that we are using 2010, the query's result is not restricted to the fields in the tables only, but can display many other computed columns known as calculated fields, which can also be put into our query design window. In fact, in Access, these cells can be considered as the columns of the table. Calculations in a query are recomputed each time the query is run. As such, data is always current, the results of the calculations not stored in a table. Yes, we need to show them that even when the value in the table changes, then the calculated value would be calculated on its own. And that is the benefit of using a calculated field, firstly either in the table or also as a part of the query result set. So tell them to change the data after having run the query once. Ask them to change the data into the table so that the next time the query is run, as we know, we save the query. The query is saved, but only the command is saved and not the result set. Because when we re-execute the previous query, it definitely has to give us the current position of the table. So the calculated fields can store numeric data, numeric, date, or text fields for each record using expressions and functions. The next chapter that we would be looking at would be designing forms and reports, where we would be looking at advanced form design, the unbound controls, graphics to form, calculated values on a form, combo boxes, tab pages on a form. Next, after having done the form part, whatever is the same can be done by them, but the advanced report part, the customized headers and footers, calculated values, sub-reports, chart in a report, printing data in the columns. So all this is we need to cover in the design of the forms and the reports. Yes, when we talk about unbound controls. Firstly, when we develop the report through a wizard, we show them that they are able to get the contents from the table, which can be viewed, it can be edited, as well as more records can be added. So at that time, the controls are bounded. Now comes to the part where we have to show them the unbounded controls. Now there are controls that retain the entered value but are not linked with any table fields, and these are the unbound controls. These controls can be used for text label display, for controls such as lines and rectangles, or even for holding some unbounded OLE object like some picture or a bitmap that are not stored in our table but we need it in the form itself. So unbound controls are also known as variables or memory variables. Similarly, other controls like shapes, logos, etc. can be added to a form. The property of these controls can be set to meet user requirements. Graphics to form. Access gives an ease to add a graphic to the background of a form. That is, if we want to put it something like what we do in Word as a watermark. The picture can contain a company, that its logo, text, or any other graphic element. The picture is specified by the form's picture property and can be embedded in the form or linked to an external file. If the picture is linked, the graphic displayed on the form changes anytime the external file is definitely when it's edited. The graphic can be inserted into the form into the following ways: either by importing a graphic file, that is a clip art, GIF, JPEG, BMP, whichever you want to display on the form. That means we can attach a link to the graphic that opens the website or other database object. And the third thing is associate the graphic with an existing macro in the database. So what we do is when we go to access, we should show them definitely here. So when we are here and we create a form, we can show them that once we create a form, we get the controls into the window here. Always try and work in the design view because it gives you the controls to work easily. Here the controls can be dragged and put. That means I can use the unbounded controls. When I say what I was talking about the image, you can say you have this insert image which you can insert from here. Pick it up, browse the image that you require. Depending on where your image, your picture is on the file. For example, I'm just taking this tulip here. And when you drag and put the control, this is the way you have taken the control. So this is insert image. Likewise, if I had done this same image to put it, again, we can change the look of this. When we select the logo here, we can close this, open the property sheet. When I select the particular logo, I have a lot of options that I can, just as if I want to resize, then I can pull this particular control. And as you see, it drags it. It's doing it partially, but still if I want the size more, I can stretch it here completely and show them that it's a logo. So to say is, when we are doing this for a logo, it's in the header area. I can drag this logo and place it somewhere in the header. But this is the size of the logo. Then this is the image. Next thing is if one needs to put an image onto the, instead of putting this control that I have put here, if this is not required, and as I said, as the background of the form, then we can go to the form and we have your picture, which is by default none. When you click on the ellipse, you will be able to see that whatever image you pick can come as the background. Yes, some of the students get confused. Why is the grid on some machines to be seen and others not? These are the frequent questions from them. Show them that you can click and unclick the grid by right click. So the screens aren't different, they are the same. Now coming back to where we were in our presentation, that is about the graphics. The calculated values in a form. Now when we set calculated values, we also said on the query result set. Again, we can do the same thing. We can show them that Access provides many features to forms. One of it is it can display the computed results even on a form in an unbounded control. These results may be bounded to some field in the table or may be unbounded. Calculated controls can use any of the existing function or user-built function available in Access. Calculated values can also be expressions computed with a combination of other fields and operators. Yes, we need to show them all the different kinds of operators that are possible. Combo boxes is where in Access provides a way of selecting a value from a list. A combo box is a compact method of presenting a list of choices and allows users to enter a value which is not in the list. The values in the combo box are displayed by clicking the arrow at the end. So in a combo box, values can be selected by clicking it or by typing the first few characters of the value into the text box area of the combination box, that is a combo box. And if we also set the auto expand property to yes, then the default setting automatically fills in the rest of the value. An example should be taken wherein form have a tab page. That means there are at least 2 tabs on the form. For example, you can have one area where you have a person's private information, that is personal information. On the second, you can just say qualification. So that is how we can put tab pages. A tab control allows the user to create multiple pages in one form. Each page is separated by its own tab and becomes active when the user selects a tab. Tab controls are useful for presenting grouped information that can be assembled by category. A tab control has pages, each with a tab on its own. Each tab page can control and have any types of controls, the text boxes, the combo boxes, images, and even more on combo buttons and the command buttons. Customized headers and footers, a very important thing. We can have reports which can include pairs of headers and footers in the section of our reports. Report header and footer for printing the information at the beginning and end of the report. That means you should show them that what is a report header and footer and what is the difference between a page header and footer. So which is used for printing information at the top and bottom of each page. And we can also have a group header for printing the information when the group starts or when the group ends, so then next group header would start. Yes, now as we talked about calculated values in queries in forms, we also can have them in the reports, which are added using text boxes and specifying an expression. The calculated values in the report can be displayed in any of the 2 ways. Firstly, using queries with calculated columns and creating reports based on them. Or secondly, by computing values in the report itself using the expression and function. So now we will be looking at how expressions and functions. The calculated values in queries are displayed as fields in reports, which use. Also show them the sub-report, which is a complete report in its own right. and is inserted in another report, which is your main report. Main report can either be bounded or unbounded. A bounded main report is based on a table or query, and its sub-reports contain the related information to what you have selected in the report. That means an unbound main report is not based on a table or query, but can serve as a container for one or more sub-reports. Yes, we can also put charts into a report. Charts can be included in reports to illustrate the information more clearly. That is, charts enhance the data presented in reports by summarizing the information and illustrating it in easily understandable ways. So as we discussed, that charts give us a visual representation of data. The reader can analyze trends and make comparisons using charting tools. Chart can be linked to a field in the underlying table or query. So that means we also have to show them that forms and reports can be done either from the table or the query. Yeah, chart type. We can show them one or two chart types and give them a chance to try out the others. Wherein the column chart, which we used to compare multiple values of categories or differences over a period of time. The horizontal axis depicts categories and the vertical axis depicts the values. Whereas the bar chart is something different from that, used for the same purpose. However, the horizontal axis is the bar chart, shows the values, and the vertical axis would be showing the period of time. Coming to the area chart, used to emphasize differences in individual values to the total over a period of time. We also have the line chart used to compare trends over a period of time. The pie chart, which is used to show the relationship or which is a part of the entire whole. It is suitable for depicting one data series or data at a point in time. Yes, when we are printing data into the reports. Now, while we are working with many databases, we come across certain databases which have long list of information. That means many records. As a result, printing such data can mean printing a single column on many pages. Could be there is just one column in the table. The data list is very long. In this case, we have the option that the multiple columns for the report can be set using the report page setup. That is the property, and setting the number of columns to 2 or more than that. Building criteria expressions, operands and operators in our criteria. We know we have different kinds of operators: the comparison, arithmetic, miscellaneous, logical. Miscellaneous especially show them the like, between, and, in, is null. The built-in functions, mathematical and date-time financial text. When you have to look at the built-in functions, do not get confused how you would put them in the table or the criteria. Simply pull down a form. What you can do is you can take a form. Yes, my suggestion is you create a form for them. Take a blank form, and on this, try to put the controls. Just put a title here. Tell them that now we are looking at some functions, like if we are looking at some text functions. Let them have a form where they can try out all the text functions. So what we can do is take particular text box, write it that we are going to talk about which function. So if we are talking about, say, suppose left, like this. So they get a practical example rather than, see, once we have put this control over here, it is also necessary that select it, and you can also copy paste the controls. So that means now I use this particular control to paste the controls. That means if you paste this, you can have one text box here showing them that we are showing them the left option, wherein here you can actually write what you want to show them, that how it is going to pick up the characters from the left. So in this particular text box, we can write the formula. Okay, so when they execute the form, they will know that after executing the form, whatever has happened, the left function, then the next text box can take the right function and so on. Similarly, you can do the same thing when we are talking about the mathematical functions. So that looking at different functions, sorry, the screen has gone out. So mathematical functions can be taken at one screen, then we have the date time screen, then we can have financial functions and text functions. As you know, we put expression builder tool. This will open up either when we have a calculated field, so we need to give a formula. So we should introduce them to that and what are the different parts of the expression builder tool. The comparison operators show them greater than. So you can check out that if you are checking for two values, which is greater than, less than, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to, not equal to, and equal to. All this is there in our module, so you can have a look at it there. The arithmetic operators, addition, subtraction, multiplication. Please show them the divide and show the difference in integer divide. That means if I divide 5 by 2, it is 2.5. But if I integer divide 5 integer by 2, it will return me 2. So show them the difference that in one query result set, the division is giving them what kind of result and integer divide is going to give them what kind of result. Exponentiation, which you all know is power, and modulus is depicted by the mod operator. Like operator, very, very important in our query result set, because if we are checking out for a particular string, like suppose if I say that the transaction type is withdrawal, then I have the entire string to check for in the criteria. But if I have to check for a criteria which is not completely matching, but it has to make use of some wildcard characters, then I definitely need the like operator which works with text or date data type. This is used to match the text pattern. And as I said, this uses the wildcards, asterisk, question mark, hash. Asterisk denotes any number of characters. Question mark stands one for each place of the character. The hash stands for a single digit. And when we want to check for a set of characters which are consecutive in the alphabet set, then we can make use of the square brackets and the asterisks. Yeah, the other operators which we need to consider for a query result set is the miscellaneous ones. Between and operator, which checks for the number and date data type. Show them that whatever is the numeric field between this and this, as well as for the date. In operator, very useful. If I have to check that either the code is A, B or C, then I have to write A or B or C. Now this is okay if I have 3 options, but what if I have 5 to 6 options to check? Then I can use the in operator, which is more easily going to take all the values inside the in and bracket option. Is null operator. The is null operator is used to find the null records in our table. Yes, what are the records which do not have values in their particular columns is the null. And we use is with null to indicate all the records which are null in the table. We clearly need to tell them null doesn't mean 0, it doesn't mean a blank. Access considered it as just null. So once you have done is null, also show them is not null, so they get a more clear picture. Coming to logical operators, the results and expression return true or false. These operators are used to combine the multiple expressions. They are also known as Boolean operators. So we have to take into consideration and, logical or, and we'll check for both conditions, or we'll check for mutually exclusive. In fact, OR and XOR works in the similar manner where it checks for both but mutually exclusive is true. EQV, that is a logically exclusive NOR. This would return true if both the expressions are either true or both are false. Logical not, yes, this is the one which will negate the expression. If it's true, it makes it false. If it's false, it makes it true. Like I told you, you can use it with is. When you're checking out with is null, also ensure that use is not null in the next one. If you're using like somewhere with them, use not like after that immediately so that they know that they can use it with the same. Built-in functions. I've already given you an idea that built-in functions, what you can do is you just make a form, put some controls on it, and then you put the formula is equal to left, is equal to right in another box. In the next box, you say is equal to add. So in that manner, we are able to get the built-in functions, which are specialized operations to enhance the working of Access. They perform mathematical, financial, comparative, and other operations using functions. These functions are used to perform various operations on strings, such as manipulating the strings, concatenating, extracting a portion. If I want the mid of certain string, if I want the reverse of a string, then we have datetime functions, which are going to give us the date, the time, the now function, the date add function, the date difference function, which would show the different number of days within the two dates. Then we have the month function, month name. All these are there in the module. Then we have the math functions, which are for performing calculation on numeric data. These functions provide us the property of performing various mathematical operations, just like our arithmetic operators. And the most useful financial functions, which are used to perform many standard financial calculations, such as interest rates, annuity or loan payments, and depreciation. The most important use of expression builder today. What is the view? Firstly, the expression box is where the text box in which expressions are written. That means any values from the operator button or expression elements can be pasted in the expression box. That is, when you go in for a calculated field, an expression box opens up and the students wonder what has to be done. There in the center, that expression box will be taking the formula. Now the operator buttons will be various operators which are available in the operator buttons tab. We can just click any operator to get in the expression box, that is the text box. There are actually 3 tabs in the expression elements, which mean like this. The first one is for the objects in the database, like tables, queries, forms or reports. The second one is for the sub-elements of the objects, selected whatever is the first object, and containers in the reports and forms. The third is for the properties of the elements selected in the select tab. That is the second tab. Yeah, a very concluding part, that is of once we have developed the tables, the relationships, data into it, we have shown them different queries with the advanced queries. We then form the report, the forms. Then we have the reports, which is a finalized view. So we need to tell them that there are 6 objects in a database, namely table, query, form, report, macro, and module. We can show them up to a macro. A module is where you need some VBA coding. So that's the part which they will not be learning in such short period of time. So when we talk about macro, there are these simplify the tasks. You can show creating a macro, attaching a macro, restricting records using a where condition, validating data using a macro, automating data entry using a macro. And once we are done with the macro, we need to show them the switchboard. A very important feature of Access is a switchboard. Creating a database switchboard, modifying a database switchboard, as well as putting it as your default. That is the startup option. Creating a macro. Macros are written by specifying a list of operations to perform and providing arguments for these actions. Access enables macros so that they can automate responses to many types of events. Events can be changed in the data, the opening or closing of a form or a report, or even a change of focus from one control to another without forcing the actually using a programming language. So in the new macro designer, the layout more closely resembles a text editor. And I can see that when I get back to Access and if I say create a macro, then it already gives me all the action catalogs on the right here. And depending on whatever action I want, I have a kind of a text editor which will allow me to choose from whatever I want. Like for example, if we were looking at, if we need a message box, we know that whatever message we need to show, you can put it here. Suppose we say hello, then when you have the beep, you keep the BPS. If the sound card is fine, you can have the voice. Type, you can have different types over here, either critical, warning, or warning with exclamation. This is just information. And we just say that this is an because we are short of time, and in our video sessions that we would have later on, we can have more of practical part. Now once you see if I'm about to run, it will first tell me to save. Whereas in queries, when we execute the query, it allows us to run first and then save. But if you have observed, in case of a macro, like what I'm executing here, it will first tell me that you save the macro, and only then it will execute the macro. And once I say OK, it does execute the macro. So this is the message that I have put in here as information. And the title that I show has come in my title bar of the macro, and I have saved it. If I close all, if I have saved all of the things, then definitely I can go and use this macro whenever I want. Yes, one important thing is please tell them to avoid using these names as Form 1, Form 2. They should know what things are there, and that is the reason we have to keep the proper name. Now they also have a query when the form is open or the object is open, they say it doesn't get renamed. Only when it is closed, you have the rename options where you can go and change the name of the form. Now if I execute this macro again, yes, it is showing. So the action is already there in the macro. What I need to do is that we just show them that the control object is going to. So in this way, we create the macro frame. In the new macro designer, the layout, as I said, is text editor. Actions and conditional statements displayed in a familiar top-down format that is used by programmers. Arguments are displayed in line in a dialog box. The action catalog on the right are the basic building blocks of macros. MS Access 2010 provides an action catalog pane that contains large lists of actions to be chosen, enabling a wide range of commands that can be performed. Some of the commonly used actions are, you can open a report, find a record, you can display a message box, or even apply a filter to the form or the required report. Next, we can also attach a macro. Now, where all can a macro be attached? It can be an event of a control. That means on particular button click, I can attach a macro. We can attach it to a form, a report. Macros are used to provide an added functionality to the Access objects. So basically, all other objects can be like, if you want to execute any particular query and the click of a control button, then we can associate that. So macros can automate responses to many types of events without using a programming language. So events are the property of a form or a control. Macros are always attached to one event or another to perform some action. Now, we also have restricting records using a where condition. So if a macro condition is an expression that enables a macro to perform certain tasks only if a specific situation exists. When a condition is used in a macro, the macro performs a defined set of tasks, depending on whether the expression returns true or whether it returns false. So it's just like a where condition which filters and selects the records in the forms or reports. and making use of the underlying tables of queries. The where condition is an action argument. In fact, when I show you the action in the macro, which can be taken as either open a form or open a report. Next thing we look at is validating data using a macro. Microsoft Access provides a variety of ways to control how data is entered in a database. The validations can be defined at the table level by specifying table properties, or the validation can be done at the form level. Just as you know that when we create a table, we have field level validation. So here with the help of a macro, we are talking about a table validation or a form validation. Macros are useful for validating records when validation rule is to be applied on multiple fields in the form, or to the same field in different forms. Display the customized error messages for different types of errors in the field. Instead of validation rule, it must be just a warning message. The validation involves references to controls on other forms or contains a function. So that is about validation. We can have automating data entry using a macro. That means macros can be used to avoid errors and save time during data entry by automating the data entry process. Instead of having users type in the same data over and over for each record, with the possibility of invalid data being entered, a macro can automate data entry. Microsoft Access macros can be used to speed up the process of data entry. While automating the entry of data, it can be ensured that the possibility of errors in database data is minimized, which can have an impact on the accuracy of data available for the reports and queries, because the action will directly be taken by a macro. Macros can also be used for data entry where the value to be entered is dependent on value of the other fields. Yes, the most useful switchboards. Firstly, we need to show them where we are to get the switchboard from. Now, if you see on my screen, directly I have put it onto the quick access menu. But kindly take them to the file, take them to the options, show them how they will get the quick access menu to be set, wherein if they go in for all commands, when they go to a set of S, that is the switchboard, scroll them, show them that they have the switchboard, which will come almost at the end. So where we have the switchboard here, what I have done is from the switchboard here, I have put it into the quick access menu, and that is how it is added, and it is accessible here. And when I click on the switchboard, it will ask me to enable and find a valid. It has not found, so I can start creating. And this is where I will start making the switchboard manager with all its items. And once I do this and my switchboard is ready, we need to show them that the form area is having a switchboard form. And with this specific creation having completed, what happens is there is also a table that gets created with the name of switchboard, wherein the data is stored. Just a minute, let me check out why am I told that there is some issue with the sharing. Switchboard is a Microsoft Office Access 2010 form that facilitates navigation and access to different parts of an application. So I've already shown you that you can put it on the ribbon. It provides you direct access to the specific functions. That means when we have various forms and reports and we want to add data directly to those forms and generate the reports, we can open the tables directly through the switchboard. That is, these buttons can be programmed to open the forms, reports, queries, which will be making use of the underlying tables. Each button on the switchboard triggers some action within the database or leads to another switchboard form. Switchboard forms are an invaluable way to keep users focused on using the database as intended. That means not necessary that every user has access to the direct tables. So the switchboard form becomes helpful for the users to have direct access from the front end without opening the back end. Switchboard manager only allows a maximum of 8 command buttons on a switchboard, or we may have separate switchboards. You can modify a database switchboard. A switchboard created using Switchboard Manager can display only the default settings for the elements on the switchboard. Switchboards can be made more handy and effective by modifying the properties of a switchboard. Access provides different features to customize a switchboard, which can also be modified in the design view by using the property sheet pane as I showed you for the form. Switchboard is actually a style of a form. Switchboard can be modified by changing its design, moving controls, adding text, modifying text properties, adding reports, the graphics, the various control properties. To add or delete buttons to switchboard, the edit option in Switchboard Manager is used. Then of course we have to set the switchboard to become a starter option. This is, we make a switchboard form as the default. Since most database users do not require direct access to the entire application, the switchboard can be used as a means to direct the user only to the objects specific to their job. To make a switchboard appear while opening the database so as to make the application more convenient, set the startup option of the database. Displaying the switchboard at startup helps to implement a level of security by hiding the key elements of the interface from the user. This will allow the user to access database objects relevant to their task. So now we see how we go to access, and from here, when we go to File and we see Options, we can directly go to the current database and the display form is none. Once I start, when I have created the switchboard form, whichever is the switchboard form I can select from here, and once I implement OK, then that particular form would become the default form. It will also prompt me at that time that you can now close the database so the action takes place. Next time when I open the database, my database will not open up in this format, but I can directly see the switchboard form. The other concluding part of the advanced database sessions that you will be having is databases, protection, and import and export. Here we will be discussing then the points of hyperlink fields, hyperlink control, splitting a database, encryption in database, converting an access database to an ACCDE, that is an execute file, importing CSV or TXT file into Access database, importing an existing database into Access, importing and exporting the Excel spreadsheet. Hyperlink fields and hyperlink control. We can show them that we can have hyperlink fields in our table. That means Microsoft Excel store a hyperlink data type to create a clickable link to a web page file or email address. A hyperlink can store up to 2048 characters. The hyperlink data type field holds combination of text and numbers stored as text and used as a hyperlink address. Like for example, if we put a web address in the hyperlink data type, then when a net is connected and we click on that particular web address, that site will open up. Or suppose if you have your email ID, which is in the hyperlink field, then if you are configured onto Outlook, then MS Outlook will open up through your hyperlink, your email ID. So it can be used in two ways, either by the URL or through the insert hyperlink window. So you also have a control by the name of hyperlink that can be placed on a form. The reference to a website or a web page may be directly entered in the hyperlink column, while a reference to a folder will be more easily done by the insert hyperlink window. Splitting a database, a very important feature, because when we split, actually this is what happens, that you are not supposed to have all in any organization. No person will have access to all the part of the database. So to restrict the access of many users on the table to avoid any changes, to reduce the network traffic in a multi-user application, to maintain database because maintenance of data becomes easier as the data and application file are separate files. So as we know today that there are many data entry people who are entering data just looking at the manual data and they're entering it through the forms into the database, but they have no knowledge of how the database operates. So those are the front-end people. Now at the back end, the tables are put onto the web server. If it's a kind of a network that's a multi-user environment, then not all terminals would have access to all part of the database. So splitting is basically we are breaking up the part of the tables to go into another database. So before you show them this, please tell them to create a copy of their database. So once a copy of the database is created, they have their entire database intact, because after splitting, there will be two databases, one at a front end and the other one at the back end. A back-end database holds all the tables and a front-end database holds all the forms, queries, reports, macros, and the modules. That means you will see that once you have splitted the database, the front-end database will show the table names, but with an arrow indicating that these tables have moved to some other BE underscore. The file name is the same with a underscore BE as its actual file name wherein the tables have moved. So when you execute it from the front end, it would get executed, but the tables actually reside in the back end database. The front end database is the original file and the back end database is located in the location that specified the earlier in the database splitter. The copy of the database must always be created. That is what I have already instructed you. So, by chance, if you have deleted the backend database after splitting, also show them that. Let them have a copy of the original database that we have already completed with the switchboard till now. Let them have the original one. On the copy, ask them to do a split. Once the split is done on the copy, that means there is one front-end file which is having all the forms, queries and reports and macros and modules, and the backend file would be having only the tables. Tell them that if the backend file is deleted, they will not be able to make use of the other things in the front end. Make them delete that particular file of the backend, so that what happens is they get to see the effect that yes, splitting has actually happened. The tables are moved there. Now if I try to use the front end without the backend file, it will not execute. Encryption helps to protect the database from prying eyes. As the word suggests, it scrambles and compacts the database, so it is completely unreadable by a word processor or any other utility program. Encrypting a database does not restrict access to database objects, but to open the database, the user must first enter a password. That means decrypting the database reverses the process and restores it to its original form. Yes, what we can do is also convert an access database to an ACCDE, that is an executable file. Access provides some useful tools, one of which converts the database to the ACCDE file. This contains compiled versions of all the code in the database with none of the source code. So ACCDE databases run faster, but the user cannot access the source code for viewing or editing. The ACCDE, as it says, executable only file, is a locked down version of the original access file. If the access file contains any Visual Basic, that is a VBA code, then only the compiled code is included in the ACC, that is the executable file. As a result, the VBA code cannot be viewed or modified by the user. Also, users working with the executable file cannot make design changes to the forms or reports. So they howsoever do not have access to make modifications. But the benefits of this executable file is it reduces the size of the database. optimizes the memory usage and improves the performance, protects the VBA code from being viewed or edited while still allowing it to run, allows users to update data and run reports without providing the entire database. Yes, as per module, if you see, there's a lot of importing and exporting that we have to show them. See, as we know that they are looking at Access and Excel in the advanced course. So what I suggest is you can import an Excel workbook and show them. You can also ask them to use the same by exporting to Excel. So once you have shown them with Excel, that is a database to and fro, can import and export from Excel. We also have some other formats like CSV, TXT, which they can try out for. Now in case of CSV and TXT, we just need to give them more instructions because they have not used these files with Access. A text file contains unformatted readable characters, as we know, such as letters and numbers, and special characters which are tabs, line feeds, and carriage returns. To use a text file as a source file for importing or linking, the contents of the file must be organized in such a way that the importing and linking results can divide the contents into a set of records or rows, and each record into a collection of fields, that is the columns. Text files that are organized properly fall into one of the two types, the delimited files and the fixed width files. In a delimited file, each record appears on a separate line and the fields are separated by a single character called the delimiter. The delimiter can be any character that does not appear in the field values, such as the tab, semicolon, comma, space, and so on. Fixed width files will be each record appears on a separate line and the width of each field remains consistent across the different records. Show them the importing, like if I take it back to Access, yes. So you can show them that we have this tab of external data, which has two tabs, import and export. Now when I say that I want to export to Access, if I click over here, then specify the destination file name and format. So where I want to go and in which format I want to export this particular file. If I browse through, depending on what file I want to export to, I can select the Access database. Now this, here there are not many Access databases which you can export. So what we do that is to just show an import. Like I say, I want to import from Excel. So import the source data into a new table in the current database. Yes, then it will tell you to browse. If I say I already have some kind of table here, and I know that some data from Excel has to be brought into this table, then I can use this import. Now when I'm using the normal import, as I do not know what I'm trying to select now, then I can browse through, and wherever there is Excel data, there is not any Excel data on this faculty machine. So when we say open, it will open up that Excel file and put it onto our table over here. In this similar, likewise manner, we can show them for export. So that is importing an existing database into Access database. You can bring data from one Access database into another in many ways. Copying and pasting is the simplest method, but importing and linking is actually what we need to show them. Yes, you can have a look at this case study, which is specially designed so that you can have your own practice session on what all we have discussed. The only thing here is I have put three tables over here. One is the accounts table, the other one would be a customer table, and the third one would be a transaction table. So there are three tables which I have put over here. Now if you look here, also tell them, this I specifically put here to show you that when we are working in 2010, we are making use of text and memo. But as currently we are into 2013, this particular version that I have put over here is from 2013, so that in the times to come, when they are about to use it from 2013, or as you know, 2016 is ready, people are using it. So in 2013, it will not show you text, it will show you short text. And instead of memo, it will show you long text. So today, if they are using this and further on they move to a newer version, they should not be surprised where there is memo. The memo has been replaced by long text. So this is just a simple case study which we will be sharing with you all, so that you can try this out and use it in your class sessions. Besides this, yes, the relationship too I have put over here. Now besides this, what I would like to tell you is on behalf of the faculty that, as you know, that we have our CD that is provided to us, our lab CD. Yes, you must have got the CD with the module. Now you have lab exercises here, and as we are talking about advanced access, we need to tell them that they can make use of this Apex database, which is in the form of a financial database with bank and invoice inventory, and they can establish the relationships on this particular tables, use them. You can also use them occasionally if you want in some sessions, and after we put the relationship, use this so that we know that the module is being useful as well as its CD is also in use at ICIA. So this is about this particular database. There is also a Northwind provided in the same. So as we know, Northwind database is the one for samples to be used. So we can show them that through our CD. Yes, and an HRB database, which is a very short database. They can just try the very first one as employees, because it is a very single data that has been provided here. In this manner, they get to, when they are introduced to this, they are able to see how they are about to, they are expected to design the tables. So we can tell them about the different field properties and the field sizes that can change. So with this concluding part of the session for today, which was a very short overview, restricting 90 minutes, I am here, and if there is any query from your part, definitely you can send it me through mail and I will get back to you, since we are short of time. So with this, the concluding session says like this: is the advanced database, which is for the CA, should try out some case studies pertaining to the financial, that's the accounting part. And the next thing is they also have a project that they need to do, which is a proper case study, which is given to them as an assignment. Thank you for today.